Story 1. I used to work in a shop where, whenever an important person entered the building, you were supposed to make an announcement. The thing about our shop, though, was that we had so much foot traffic that we only announced the arrival of our top boss. When that happened, everyone in the building had to stand at attention until we heard the words, "At ease." He was the equivalent of someone who leads a department in a large company, like the head of shipping in Amazon. I worked nights, so things were relatively quiet. My friend loved to entertain himself by pretending to announce that our boss had entered the building. I never took his fake announcements lightly. I would always stand at attention immediately. He would come in every time and laugh like crazy. His laugh was piercing like a loud, dying hyena that owned a parrot who repeated the noise, only louder. When his laugh finally faded, his voice was rough and scratchy, like sandpaper against wood. This went on for about 2 months. I put up with it every day. Every single time, I'd give him a sarcastic, "Oh man, you're so clever. You got me again." He was also a big fan of making rude comments. One of his favorite lines, delivered between bursts of that hyena parrot laugh, was, "You think I'd actually announce that, fool?" Then he'd laugh again, louder than before. Now, I wasn't exactly a fan of our boss, either. Most people weren't, but it was mainly because of how strict he was. He demanded the best from us, and honestly, that's a good quality to have. I respected him, even if he was tough, and I didn't enjoy hearing hyena boy trash talk him constantly. One day, after my coworker came in and once again fake announced the boss, I stood at attention as usual. I saw him walking into the office, and for some reason, his laugh seemed worse than ever that day. Maybe I hadn't slept well, or maybe I was just in a bad mood. Either way, I'd had enough. I snapped. "Be quiet. Your laugh and the way you talk drive me absolutely crazy. Just stop already." He looked taken aback. Then he smirked and said, "Yo man, I'm just joking with you. Can't you take a joke? Cue more of that sandpaper cackle." My blood was boiling, but I kept a straight face. "Yeah, you know what, brother? You're right, I'll work on it." He gave me a suspicious look and walked into another room. That's when I decided I would turn the tables on him. I'd do exactly what he'd been doing to me, right down to the awful laugh. The next day, I beat him to his own prank. I announced the boss's arrival. He immediately stood at attention. I walked into the office and let out a sarcastic, exaggerated laugh that sounded like a constipated hyena. My face turned bright red, and my eyes nearly bulged out as I stared right at him. He grew furious. "Oh, you think you're funny, huh? Is that supposed to be my laugh? Your little joke isn't funny, man. You're just a jerk." All I said was, "Right." Then I walked into my office, got on the computer, and checked my email. My direct supervisor had sent me a message reminding me to make sure my shift was squared away because the big boss would be visiting next week for morale checks. I didn't really understand what that meant, but I didn't care. My face turned into a grin so wide it could have made the Grinch jealous. I was going to keep mocking him every single day until the boss's visit. I became relentless. One day, I did it 5 times, each more ridiculous than the last. It only took 3 days before he stopped standing up entirely. Then came the insults. They got worse by the day: crude, mean-spirited, and eventually racist. I can't even repeat most of them. The day before the big visit, I pulled my usual stunt, and he lost control. He didn't even wait for me to finish walking in. He ran straight at me, shouting right in my face, spit flying everywhere. It felt like it was raining indoors. When he finally stopped yelling, I simply said, "Okay, I'll stop." "That's right, you little jerk. You might be in charge of this shift, but I own this building. No one like you messes with me." At that point, I could hardly contain my excitement for what was about to happen. I was so thrilled I was afraid I'd give myself away. I hadn't told him a single word about the upcoming visit, and no one else on shift had spoken to him for weeks because he'd been acting so unhinged. Finally, the day came. It was night, and I kept checking the window every 5 minutes for the boss's arrival. When I saw him pull up, I told Hyena Boy to grab the phones because I needed to step outside. He scoffed and muttered something unpleasant as I walked away. Outside, I greeted the boss and shook his hand. Once we stepped inside, I made the official announcement. Before the boss could even speak, there was a loud crashing sound, things being thrown, followed by shouting. "You think I'm going to fall for that again? You really think that lazy boss is going to come here?" I should mention that our boss was an African-American man who had moved to the United States from the Ivory Coast when he was 2 years old. The look on his face was unreadable, calm but firm. He cleared his throat and called out, "At ease." The building fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop. The boss walked to the counter, and the look on Hyena Boy's face was priceless. I felt like a starving man who'd just been served the finest meal in the world. "Hello, Hyena," the boss said calmly. "How are you tonight?" "Ah, good, sir." "How are you?" he stammered, shaking like a leaf. "I'm well, thanks. A little tired, but well." "Sir, I'm so sorry. I thought—" "I'm here to see how morale is going, nothing more. But by the looks of it, it's not great. What can I do to help?" Now, unless things are truly terrible, one of the unspoken rules in the shop was that you never involved the big boss in your problems. You handled things at the lowest level possible. "Sir, we're fine here," I said quickly. "No problems we can't handle on our own." "I see," he replied. "Well, if there's ever anything I can fix, let me know." Then he walked around, talking to others on shift. After a while, he returned to the counter and called Hyena's name. "Hey, can I talk to you in this office over here, please?" They were in that office for over 6 hours. Just before the shift ended, the boss left, and Hyena's face looked completely drained. He later told me that every time he tried to apologize, the boss would stop him and tell him he wasn't allowed to speak. Instead, the boss spent 6 hours telling him stories about African Americans who had struggled and persevered to build better lives. I don't know many people who could have kept their composure like the boss did. It was impressive and honestly inspiring. The next night, Hyena didn't show up. My supervisor told me he had been moved, but didn't say where. About a month later, I found out what happened. Hyena had been demoted from E3 to E2, lost 2 months of pay, and was later dishonorably discharged for being caught with illegal substances. For the record, spice is a type of artificial marijuana. Story 2. My lord, I never thought I would post here. Okay, now for the context. I'm a 15-year-old male and I have mixed races. I'm part Chinese, Irish, Hawaiian, and Filipino, etc. But I am also black. Anyways, for the cast: me, my friend, the entitled kid, the bratty 8-year-old child, and last but not least, the nagging entitled parent. Now time for the story. So I went to a friend's house for his birthday. We played with some Nerf guns and some other stuff. Also, I rode my bike there with my parents' permission. My phone, Switch, and the Pro controller were in my bag, and I completely forgot until we started playing. Then here comes 2 people, the entitled kid and entitled parent. Later we ended going inside and playing Smash Bros. In case you guys are wondering, of all the people, I was the best, and if y'all ever want to play, I will be happy to. Another thing, I played my 3 mains K, Rule, Ganondorf, and Sephiroth. I mainly played Sephiroth, but then came the entitled kid. "Can I play?" My friend: "Sure, but only 3 matches because he has to give his Switch a break." "Okay." He then looked at my Pro controller. "That's a nice controller." Me: "Thanks. Can I use it?" "Sorry, bud, I don't trust anyone around my Pro controller. But I want to use it." Me, in my head: "Oh, don't tell me it's going to be one of these kinds of kids." Fast forward to the match. I'm playing Sephiroth. The kid is playing Marth and my friend is playing Cloud. Convenient how we use the FF7 rivalry, and I'm in a lead against the kid and my friend. I got my friend out with his last stock, and then there's the kid, so I thought to myself, I'm going to try and pull off something funny. So I knocked him high to the right side of the stage. I made him think I was going to attack quick, which made him do a counter. I saw the counter come out, and I waited out the counter. Then I carried him to the blast zone with Octaslash and killed him. Then it went like this. Entitled kid, I would have done better if you let me use that remote. Me, like I said, bud, I don't trust anyone with my Pro controller. He then runs off angry. 20 seconds later, I hear the Godzilla steps of the kid's mother. As soon as I saw her in the door, I thought to myself, here we go. Entitled parent, in the most Karen way you can think. You, she points at me. Me, yes. Give my son your remote now. Not in the mood for this, no. Excuse me. I reply with a little bit of anger, no. Where are your parents? Why would I tell you? So I can have a little chat with them and tell them how rude you are to my son. Entitled kid. He also killed me in the game. I then look at him and say in an Irish accent, are you joking me right now? That's it, I'm taking the remote. I hold my controller tight. Absolutely no, I just got this yesterday. I don't care, you are being so selfish and rude to my son. You better get back, I have a really non-stop reflex. Yet that reflex is me punching the person's hand that tries to touch me. But yet she still tries to reach my controller. At that moment, my reflex kicked in. She very stupidly yells out like a small dog, yelping oh. My friend's mother then came and asked what happened. Entitled parent, he hit my hand and I cut her off with, she is trying to take the remote I bought, and I told her about my reflex, and she still reached for my remote. He's lying, he's just being a selfish jerk. And you are cursing in front of your child who looks like he's 6. I didn't know his age until I asked my friend after the incident. My friend's mother then asked the entitled parent and kid to leave. Entitled parent, only after I get this remote from him. I say in a threatening way while raising my fist, try me. After that, she soon backed off, but before she left, she said, jerk. Then I say, right back at you. Me and my friend still played after the incident, and we still laugh about it to this day. This happened 2 months ago, by the way. Thank you guys for reading, and have a nice day. Story 3. Years ago, while I was in high school, I lived in a particularly rough part of Los Angeles. Because my family didn't have much money, I had to rely on public transportation. I memorized every bus line that could get me home no matter what hour it was. That meant walking through some questionable areas at night, but I rarely had anything of real value on me. I kept my laptop and my broken handheld game console at my friend's house for safekeeping because I didn't trust leaving them around my sisters. My friends often told me to make sure I didn't look like I had anything worth taking and to hide my headphones under my shirt. One night, I was heading to the train station to go stay at a friend's house and left my mom's place around 10:30 p.m. Normally, I looked like a shabby, overweight nerd, oversized hoodie, cargo pants, and my old New Balance sneakers. I only owned 2 pairs of pants, 1 pair of shoes, and 1 shirt. The hoodie really helped make me look unassuming. The local gang members in my area already knew of me. That started the night I carried a large painting home from a garage sale for my mom's Mother's Day gift. I was walking home at 3 a.m. from the bus stop when they stopped me and asked what I was doing out so late on a school night. After a long conversation, they told me to stay in school and that I'd be safe in the neighborhood as long as I kept to myself. So generally, I was left alone until one night when I met 2 guys who clearly didn't get the memo. That night, I was walking to the train station and checking if the 10:25 p.m. bus might be late, hoping to catch it to save some walking time. I wasn't paying much attention to my surroundings. My older sister had just gotten the newest version of the iPod Touch, so she gave me her old one. I was heading to my friend's place to update the music on it, but I had it playing while I walked. A few blocks from home, 2 men in dark clothes stopped me and asked for the time. Then they asked if I was from around the area. I told them I had moved there recently and went to school a bit farther away. They nodded. Then one asked what I was listening to. Some Sarah Barrels, I said. That's some soft, weird stuff, one of them scoffed. She just has good music. No big deal, I replied. You shouldn't be listening to that junk. What are you listening to it on your phone? No, I don't have a phone. My family can't really afford one. It's an MP3 player a friend gave me. By then, I noticed one of them moving closer, so I stepped back. They both moved closer in response. What kind of MP3 player? It's just an old iPod, I said. That's not something a broke kid would have. What else do you have? What's in your backpack? Nothing much, just a change of clothes and a toothbrush. At that point, they grabbed me, snatched my backpack, and took my iPod. I tried to resist, but one of them kept hitting me, so I curled up to avoid serious injury. After being kicked, one of them yanked me to my feet, while the other searched my bag. He found my empty wallet, school ID, and exactly what I said, clothes and a toothbrush. Disappointed, they threw my stuff to the ground, looked around, and pocketed the iPod. Is this all you got? One asked. Yeah, I said quietly. Stupid kid. Giving us nothing but junk when you're walking around with something you don't deserve, he said before hitting me once more. They started to walk away, and that's when an idea popped into my head. My friend who used to be in a gang always told me not to take being treated like that without thinking smart. He also told me that sometimes you have to wait for the right moment to make your move. Wait, I said. I have video game systems, a GameCube and a PlayStation 2 and a laptop. What? Just give me back the iPod. I'll trade you. It was a gift from someone important. I just want that back. They looked at me like I was out of my mind. I started crying, not hard to do since I was in pain, and begged. I live right there, I said, pointing to a big apartment building nearby. Just come by in about 10 minutes. I'll sneak it out in my backpack. There's a dark alleyway next to the building. Please, just give me my iPod back. They seemed to think I was harmless and gullible, so they agreed. Once they walked off, I went into my mom's apartment and grabbed my emergency flip phone that I kept hidden in my shoe. I called emergency services immediately. Emergency services, what's your emergency? Can you send an officer to street name and location? I just got robbed, and I somehow convinced the robbers to come to my house to trade back what they stole. Sir, this line is for real emergencies, the dispatcher started. Prank calls tie up the line and could prevent someone from getting help. Ma'am, I'm absolutely serious, I said. I'm 16 and was assaulted by 2 grown men. If I'm lying, I'll take whatever fine. You can check this phone's under my mom's name. I already gave you my address. After a pause, she said, There's already a patrol car near your area. I'll send them right away. A few minutes later, a police car arrived and 2 officers came up to me. I explained the situation a few times, but they looked doubtful. Look, kid, there's no reason you should be wasting our time, one officer said. No one in their right mind would come to their victim's house after robbing them, the other added. Right then, I heard a voice yelling, Kid, where are you? You want your iPod back or what? Both officers froze, their expressions changing immediately. They motioned for me to respond. I have the stuff, I shouted. Just promise you'll give me back my iPod. Yeah, whatever. Just hurry up, one of the robbers said. Hands in the air, stay where you are, one of the officers shouted, pulling his gun. They rounded the corner, flashlights aimed, and caught both men off guard. Within seconds, the officers had them cuffed. Turns out, they had knives on them and stolen property from another robbery earlier that night. I pressed charges, and though it took a day or 2 to get my iPod back because it was held as evidence, both men were arrested. Months later, I got a court notice. I went with my friend, who is practically my guardian, and gave my testimony. Both men were convicted of assault and robbery and sentenced to around 4 or 5 years. Story 4. A little over 20 years ago, I trained to be an over-the-road driver at a trucking school, then got my first few jobs with various companies under a trainer. The long and the short of it is, I was not cut out to be a truck driver. My first trainer had a flat route, Jersey to Cali, then back, total time 7 days. He made it abundantly clear that if I didn't get him back in 7 days, there'd be hell to pay. So after we got back, and I crashed in my room for 3 days from paranoia and no sleep, I got back out there with another company, whose trainer goosed his rig to over 100 miles per hour. Most know that there are governors on trucks that, at the time, won't let them go over 65 miles an hour in gear. This genius decided with a 40,000-pound load to come rocketing out of the Denver Rockies at 65, shift the truck into neutral, and let gravity and Newton's laws speed the truck along. Okay, next company. The guy with the movies collection that filled my bunk and a habit of spitting and chewing tobacco left, right and sideways was almost the deal breaker. When I was done with him, I decided to stay with the company, but asked for a new trainer, waiting in a rinky-dink motel on $1.50 per day lien against my paycheck. After 2 weeks, watching trucks go in and out, I see this wrecker dragging a truck and trailer into the lot. It literally looked like someone had picked the truck up, flipped it upside down, and ran it over a mandolin slicer. The cab, the engine, the whole thing just looked planned down to an X-Acto knife's angle. But, I say to myself, I'll never be that dumb. To be clear, this was all before GPS, MapQuest, or Google Maps became popular. Back then, FMXA rules stated that a driver could only ever work 10 hours a day. Trainers and trucking companies played with the numbers by figuring a truck could do 650 miles in that 10 hours. So that's what you had to do before you got out of the seat. Never mind that you can almost never start at 65 miles per hour, nor stay at 65 miles per hour without breaking some kind of law. You cook your logbooks by measuring your work time based on total miles traveled, then write the rest off as you eating, sleeping, or showering, so FMXA never wonder if you're being overworked. Essentially, your 10-hour day was usually 12-14 if you didn't break the law. Little wonder why regular coffee, Red Bull, and Monster energy drinks were regularly going in and out of truck stops. Enter the line. The line was also a no-nonsense trainer. He wasn't a bad guy, so long as you were booking miles. But as I started going, I started feeling myself slow down. I just didn't have the heart to keep doing this. When I got tired from driving, I started to slip into sleep. The constant drone of the engine, the white lines on the road blinking in and out of sight. It happens sadly. If it ever happens to you, don't brush it off. Pull over and get some sleep, or get out of the vehicle to wake yourself up. Well, the line didn't like that one bit. My last day with him, I'm somewhere near Chicago, on a highway I don't remember getting on, that was pitch black save for my headlights. I know I was headed to Chicago, but not where I was or how I was supposed to get there. I managed to just barely pull the truck back onto the road after drifting over the hazard bumps in the road. Trust me, the road to hell isn't paved with good intentions, it's just paved. I stopped the truck, walked back to the sleeper, and woke him up. Listen, I'm exhausted. I can't even understand the map anymore. I don't know where I'm going. I gotta get some sleep. What? Look, just keep driving till you get to the stop, then sleep. The line tells me. Dude, I'm passing out behind the wheel. I barely got us back onto the road once. Does it make sense to play with both our lives for a load? This is my truck, so you have 2 choices. Drive this truck, or grab your stuff, and get out here. And if this little thought enters your head again, just remember that wherever you stop next, that isn't our drop, it's where you get out. For a moment, I want to just rage at the guy, but I know I'll never get anywhere. But anger brings a wonderful clarity to the mind. So, where I stop next is where I get out. Okay, boss. I grab the map book and zero in on my location. I checked our delivery point and realized that I must have missed some turnoff, because we were supposed to drop somewhere outside of Chicago, but I was still headed towards it. But Chicago had what I wanted, a Greyhound bus stop. So, I drove 3 more hours, focused on ending this misery. We had a satellite uplink to our dispatcher, and I, being tech-savvy and pissed enough, put on some of my music to cover any beeps from it, 'cause boy was I off the route. I pull into the bus terminal right next to a parked patrol car, shut the truck down and start grabbing my gear. The line wakes up as he hears me packing. So we're there, he says while yawning. Nope. What? I told you that if you stopped this truck again outside of the stop, you were getting out, he screamed at me. I grabbed the sleeper curtain and flung it wide open to show the bus terminal. I found your terms acceptable. This is where I'm getting out. The line starts to get up with fury in his eyes, and though he was smaller than me, it's clear he wasn't letting size dictate anything. Neither was I as I flashed my logbook in his face. It's going to be an interesting discussion with that officer there. How you've had me driving for the last 14 hours straight, even when I told you I was too tired to drive. The line glares at me like he was trying to pummel me by thought alone. You'll never work as a driver again, I promise you. I smile again, a mix of cheer, madness, and rage in my little laugh that makes even the line move back. I've since developed a laugh that could make Mark Hamill's Joker think twice in the right moment. Again, something we wholeheartedly agree on. By the way, dispatch might want a word with you. I know where we are, and that's not our drop point. I climb out of the truck, and he speeds off into the early morning. Turns out the cop car was empty, because the officer went inside to use the bathroom. But I borrowed some money from my mother, who was all too eager to get me back to Jersey after what I told her. Slept for 4 hours on the terminal floor before my bus. Best day's sleep of my life. To be fair, I understand the industry is getting better. With more precise G-Sync and smartphones that can keep drivers in touch, no matter what, the days of drivers being worked till they crash is slowly coming to an end. But that's also why trucking's now paying $70 plus for a driver with 5 years and no accidents. There's very few that weren't trained to treat their rigs as a bumper car. I drove the truck one last time as a wildcatter on call to deliver stuff to Delaware. Not a bad job, but I realized trucking just wasn't for me. I got into computing and haven't looked back since. Story 5. My girlfriend and I were looking for a place to live in a new city where she had just accepted an internship that didn't pay but would hopefully open big opportunities in the future. I travel for work, so it's easy for me to live anywhere. We looked and looked, but there was nothing in our price range, so we increased a few $100s and finally found a house. It was a bit pricey for what it was, but we weren't finding any better places. The lease term was written as 1 or 2 years. We went ahead and submitted an application, which we were pretty confident about since we have good credit, and my job pays pretty well. We specified that we wanted the 1-year lease as her internship was only 1 year long. So a few days go by, and we hear back from the agent. Our application was accepted, but the owner wants $150 more rent than was advertised per month, since we were only wanting to sign the 1-year lease. I mentioned that it seemed unfair that she had taken our $100 application fee before telling us about this price increase, but I kept it pretty civil since I didn't want to burn a bridge for the only viable option we had. She assured me condescendingly that this was perfectly legal and that the owner was entitled to it since he might have to go through the rental process again in a year. And since the rental market was so tight, they could do whatever they wanted. And she was right. We had no other options. So I told her that I was sorry and that I would call her back after discussing it with my girlfriend. We were so frustrated. The place was so expensive for what it was, especially considering the condition that it was in. It really was tiny. The bedrooms were about 10x10, which made me feel a little claustrophobic, and the walls were very dirty from the former tenants, who apparently had a couple big dogs living inside. There was literally dirt and grease smeared around the walls on the entire interior at about the height of a large dog. The yard was overgrown and trashed, but the lease stated that the tenant would be responsible for all landscaping and even specified that we had to keep the lawn in good condition. The lawn was about 2 foot high, completely dead weeds. All of this we convinced ourselves that we could deal with. Scrub the walls and paint. Get a lawnmower off Craigslist and pony up the water bill for resurrecting the lawn. Be minimalistic with our possessions. Hopefully the new paint would take care of the lingering dog smell. We had paid $50 each for the application fee and now felt as if we had been bait and switched, but had no other good options and our deadline was coming up fast. My girlfriend was crying, and we both felt like homeless misfits that were terrible at life. I couldn't sleep in our hotel that night, but when I pulled up my bookmarked Craigslist housing searches, I saw something new. A place that looked nice and was about $500 cheaper than the house, actually inside our original price range. I cautioned myself that it was probably a scam, but sent an email anyways, and in the morning got a phone call from a nice old man. I set up an appointment, and it was great, spacious, clean, and much cheaper. The landlord liked us, and we signed a lease the same day. We felt so lucky and happy. We were still angry about the other house. The agent had taken our $100 and raised the price on us, probably because she knew how tight the rental market was in the area and that we may not have other options. It had been just one day since she informed us about the $150 monthly price increase. I typed an angry email about how we were bait and switched, etc., but knew that it probably wouldn't get us our $100 back and that they would probably barely even read it. I asked my girlfriend if I should send it. She then came up with a brilliant plan to get back at them. Do nothing. First, I deleted the email without sending it, and we moved into our new place. A few days went by, and I got a text message from the agent of the other house asking if we were still interested. I replied that we were still very interested, and that we had gone on a trip, but would be back in a week or so and would meet up to sign the lease then. She replied that since we were well qualified, that would be fine as long as we were sure we wanted the place. So we started settling into our new place and enjoying ourselves. About 10 days later, I received a call from the agent who seemed to have forgotten about us until then, and she was frantic about getting the lease signed. I made up excuses. My girlfriend was very ill. We need a few more days. We are still 100% interested, and I will call her on Monday to set up a meeting. On Monday, I typed up an email. Sorry, but we decided not to move in after all. Thanks anyways. My girlfriend and I smiled nervously together as we shot the email off. The phone rang almost immediately. It was the agent. I exchanged glances with my girlfriend and answered it, putting her on speakerphone. She was very upset that she hadn't shown her place for over 2 weeks, and that her well-qualified tenants were dropping out. She pleaded with me to reconsider. What if I dropped the price back to the original price in the ad? She asked with desperation heavy in her voice. I pretended to think about it. I looked over at my girlfriend, and she was silently laughing and hiding her face in her arms, overcome with emotion. I could feel the tension on the line as the agent hung on my next words. Yeah, sorry, no. I cheerfully declined. The agent was distraught. I hung up. My girlfriend's plan had worked perfectly. We felt avenged. Next time, maybe she'll think twice before bait and switching.